Okay, the World Cup has a massive Sweden problem. Don't believe me? Just watch this. Alexander Isak, the most expensive signing in Premier League history, and arguably the sharpest striker in English football right now, Viktor Gyokeres. This Swedish forward has made more noise than almost anyone across Europe over the last couple of years. Here is the thing about Viktor Gyokeres. You give him decent service, and he usually finds a way to finish it. He might score, he might not, but he constantly terrorizes the 18-yard box. What we see so often from Arsenal is them playing around Gyokeres instead of actually keeping him in mind and feeding him the ball. That is exactly why having someone like Bukayo Saka playing at this elite level helps so much, destroying defenders in one-on-one situations. Sure, it helps that Raul Jimenez is basically 1,000 years old now, and who knows why he was even defending there. But anyway, I digress. Let us give Bukayo Saka credit for the sheer quality of his service. And let us praise Gyokeres too, who rarely gets enough respect for his lethal finishing and brilliant movement. The man has won the league title 3 seasons in a row. Ever since he transformed into a goal machine, he has been virtually impossible to stop. 97 goals in 102 games for Sporting. Because this is the exact player they wanted, the missing piece to finally capture that Premier League trophy. Impressive, right? But that was just the start. In his debut Arsenal season, Gyokeres bagged 21 goals that crowned the Gunners as Premier League champions after 22 long years. If anyone still doubts his absolute importance, just remember this. Viktor single-handedly dragged Sweden through the playoffs, smashing in the goals that booked their World Cup ticket. So now Sweden rolls into 2026 armed with Isak and Gyokeres. These two could easily become the most lethal strike duo in the entire tournament. But here is the truly scary part. They are not coming alone. Daniel Svensson has been absolutely massive for Borussia Dortmund, and Gudmundsson is another pure Premier League talent. Emil Holm has suffered bad luck with injuries, but when fit, he looks incredibly solid for Juventus. Elanga has been shining for Newcastle, and Barcelona already knows exactly how dangerous he really is. Then you have Yassine Ayari, a midfielder who loves to score, and Benjamin Nygren, who finished runner-up in the Scottish Premiership scoring charts. Do not let it fool you that Sweden qualified last in their group without winning a single game. Their biggest stars are hitting the World Cup in the absolute form of their lives. When a squad packs this much firepower, this much hunger, and 2 strikers who only need half a chance to ruin you, Sweden is not just happy to participate, they are coming to cause absolute chaos. Still doubt me? Just look at this. To really understand modern Swedish football, we have to dig into their history. Trust me, it is way richer than most fans realize. Sweden kicked off their international story back in 1908, making them a true European heritage team. Long before the World Cup even existed, they proved their worth by taking bronze at the 1924 Paris Olympics. While their recent World Cup runs have been a bit up and down, history makes one thing crystal clear. Whenever Sweden actually qualifies, you better take them seriously. Their first World Cup appearance happened at Italy 1934, after skipping Uruguay 1930. Like several European nations, their debut World Cup match was a clash against Argentina. They fell behind to a strike from Ernesto Bellis, but fought back to win 3-2 and booked their spot in the quarterfinals. Germany knocked them out there with a 2-1 victory. Then came France 1938, where Sweden marched to the semifinals after qualifying right behind Germany. They bypassed the round of 16 because Austria was annexed by Germany and withdrew. Then they absolutely dismantled Cuba 8-0 in the quarterfinal stage. That remains their biggest World Cup victory ever. But against Hungary, despite Arne Nyberg scoring in the very first minute, they completely collapsed and lost 5-1. During the third-place playoff, they went 2 goals up on Brazil, but ultimately lost 4-2 against a squad led by the legendary Leonidas. Sweden settled for 4th. They qualified again for Brazil 1950, arriving with massive respect after winning Olympic gold at London 1948. They started by stunning defending champions Italy 3-2. That shocking result ended Italy's unbeaten World Cup streak. Next, a 2-2 draw with Paraguay was enough to top their group and advance to the final round. But that final round was absolutely brutal. Brazil crushed Sweden 7-1, which remains their worst World Cup defeat. Then Uruguay beat them 3-2, despite Sweden leading early. Still, they finished strong, beating Spain 3-1 to secure 3rd place. That was their highest World Cup finish ever at the time. But 1954 became the first time Sweden failed to qualify. A shocking home defeat against Belgium killed their hopes. However, 4 years later, they qualified automatically as hosts of the 1958 World Cup, and Sweden definitely made it count. They dominated their group, crushing Mexico 3-0, edging out Hungary 2-1, and playing out a scoreless draw with Wales after already securing their spot. In the quarterfinals, they clashed with the Soviet Union, facing down the legendary Lev Yashin in goal. But Sweden pulled off a 2-0 win, reaching the semifinals again. Then came their ultimate test against the reigning champions West Germany. Sweden fell behind, fought their way back, won 3-1, and booked their first ever World Cup final. For a few minutes, the dream felt completely real. Captain Nils Lidholm scored after just 4 minutes, drilling a brilliant low finish past the keeper after beating 2 defenders. Sweden was actually leading a World Cup final. But then Brazil woke up. Vava found the net twice before halftime. Pelé scored 2 more, and Zagallo added another. Brazil won 5-2, crowning themselves world champions. Sweden had touched the sky, but nobody could stop Pelé. Sadly, they would never reach those exact heights again on the global stage. Following that 1958 magic, Sweden waited 12 long years to play another World Cup. They returned from Mexico in 1970, but for the very first time, they crashed out in the group stage. Next up was West Germany 1974. Featuring a much stronger squad, Sweden started with a boring scoreless draw against Bulgaria, then grinded out another 0-0 against Johan Cruyff in the Netherlands. That famous Clockwork Orange side eventually reached the final. Everything came down to Uruguay, and Sweden won 3-0, advancing to the last 8 without conceding a single goal. But the following round was completely brutal. Poland beat them 1-0 thanks to Grzegorz Lato, the tournament's top scorer. Then, Sweden actually took the lead against host West Germany, but those future champions rallied back to win 4-2. Already eliminated, Sweden still finished with pride, edging out Yugoslavia 2-1. In Argentina 1978, Sweden wrapped up a really strong cycle by reaching their 3rd consecutive World Cup. But that joy faded fast. They got knocked out in the group stage. After that heartbreak, they spent another 12 years waiting to return at Italy 1990. Absolute disaster. Sweden fell to Brazil, Scotland, and Costa Rica, crashing out of the group stage all over again. Yet from that collapse came a legendary Swedish football run, USA 1994. That squad ran on a rock-solid defense and lethal attackers like Kenny Anderson, Martin Darlin, and Thomas Brolin. They drew 2-2 against Cameroon, beat Russia 3-1, then tied future champions Brazil 1-1 after an early Anderson goal. In the round of 16, they killed off Saudi Arabia's fairy tale run with a 3-1 victory. Then came the quarterfinals against the greatest Romanian squad ever, driven by Gheorghe and Florin Raducioiu. Following a chaotic 2-2 draw in extra time, Sweden advanced on penalty kicks. Brazil waited in the semifinals. Sweden sat deep and nearly held on, until Rorario snatched an 80th minute goal to make it 1-0. Still, they left making one final statement, crushing Bulgaria 4-0 in the 3rd place playoff, stepping onto the World Cup podium for the first time since 1958, missing France 1998 hurt. But Sweden bounced back for the 2002 World Cup, unleashing a young Zlatan Ibrahimovic right at the start of his epic international career. Sweden drew 1-1 with England, then beat Nigeria 2-1. That backed Argentina into a brutal must-win corner for the final group stage game. Argentina, managed by Marcelo Bielsa and heavily favored to win it all, crashed out. A tense 1-1 draw against Sweden on June 12, 2002 sent them packing, but their run died in the round of 16. Sweden lost 2-1 in extra time to Senegal, the tournament's absolute surprise package. Even with that loss, you just knew this Swedish squad had more gears. 4 years later at the 2006 World Cup in Germany, Sweden showed up carrying massive expectations, with Ibrahimovic fully cemented as the absolute face of Swedish football. Things started rough though. A totally flat 0-0 draw against World Cup debutants Trinidad and Tobago. Pressure was boiling over against Paraguay. Then Fredrik Ljungberg buried a dramatic 89th minute winner, handing Sweden a massive 1-0 victory. They followed up with a wild 2-2 draw against England to lock down their spot in the knockout stages, but grabbing second place carried a brutal penalty. It meant playing the host nation Germany in the round of 16. That game was basically dead in 12 minutes. A lightning-fast double from Lucas Podolski put Germany up 2-0, knocked out in the round of 16 again, an exact repeat of 2002. Ibrahimovic also struggled, leaving the entire tournament without a single goal. Then came crushing heartbreak before the 2014 World Cup, even though Zlatan was playing some of the best international football of his life. During the intense playoff against Portugal, Cristiano Ronaldo hit the lone goal for a 1-0 victory in Lisbon, but that second leg in Solna turned into an all-out superstar war. Cristiano blasted a hat trick for Portugal, while Zlatan fired back with a magical brace for Sweden. Truly one of the finest performances he ever gave. Even with Ibrahimovic playing out of his mind, Portugal won 3-2 and booked their 2014 ticket. Nobody could blame Zlatan after that masterclass. Sweden went totally dark until Russia 2018, finally returning to the World Cup stage after 12 long years away. And shocker, they made it there without Zlatan. They kicked off with a gritty 1-0 win over South Korea, then almost stunned Germany after grabbing an early lead. But the Germans pulled off a dramatic 2-1 comeback, pushing everything down to a tense final group game. Facing Mexico, Sweden dropped their best performance in years. They dominated 3-0 and cruised to the top of their group. Moving into the round of 16, Sweden edged past Switzerland 1-0, making the quarterfinals for the first time since '94. The dream finally died there with a 2-0 loss to England. Still, it was a massive World Cup run. Look back through Swedish football history, and one truth always stands out. When they actually reach the tournament, they make everyone else miserable. And even though their latest qualifying road was pure chaos, Sweden is back on the scene with a seriously stacked generation of talent. Weirdly enough, the biggest goal of their whole World Cup journey was scored by Alexander Isak, a 2-1 win over Slovakia in November 2024, played during the Nations League, not standard qualifiers. At the time, no one grasped how vital that strike was, mostly because their main qualifying run was an absolute train wreck. They placed dead last behind Switzerland, Kosovo, and Slovenia. 2 draws, 4 ugly defeats, 0 wins. Anthony Elanga even confessed that half the dressing room didn't realize the Nations League path could still save them. The ultimate irony? Sweden only got that backdoor chance because they totally bombed their Nations League group in 2022, finishing behind Serbia, Norway, and Slovenia. That failure relegated them to League C. Falling down a tier meant facing softer national teams like Slovakia, Estonia, and setting up the first effort. Oh, what a save by Hain Azerbaijan in 2024, where they topped the group and locked down a playoff spot. Into the playoff semifinal, Sweden easily handled Ukraine 3-1, riding a sensational hat trick from Viktor Gyokeres. Taking that game also gifted Sweden home field advantage for the playoff final in Stockholm. And that clash against Poland turned into pure chaos. Poland had the better roster and frankly played sharper football. But Elanga ripped a brilliant goal. Defender Gustav Lagerbielke smashed in a set-piece header, and Gyokeres iced the qualification with a stunning late strike. Looking back at the whole crazy ride, this might honestly be one of the most bizarre World Cup qualifying runs a national team has ever survived. Now, what really terrifies the rest of the World Cup field is Sweden's raw individual talent, especially their star man, Viktor Gyokeres. It is safe to say Gyokeres has completely broken into football's elite tier. His current momentum is just unreal. Over the first half of the season alone, he racked up 7 combined goals and assists. But in that second half, he completely took over, dropping 17 goal contributions against heavyweights like Inter Milan and Tottenham Hotspur. That double against Fulham and a crucial assist during the run proved just how complete he is now. Those strikes pushed him past 20 goals across all competitions in his very first Arsenal campaign. He became the first Arsenal star since Alexis Sanchez in 2014-15 to hit that mark instantly. Joker shines through his sheer striking intelligence. His box movement is surgical, always finding those killer pockets of space. And in that Champions League semi-final against Atletico Madrid, he was easily Arsenal's standout guy. Sure, he buried a penalty, but the real magic was his hold-up play, his football IQ, and how he just seemed to be everywhere at once. Those displays dragged Arsenal to their first Champions League final since 2006, ending a 22-year Premier League drought. Mentally, Gyokeres is peaking right on time for the 2026 World Cup. He has been relentless for Sweden too, smashing 19 goals in 32 caps, plus 9 in 6 Nations League games. But the Swedish threat does not end with him. If Alexander Isak catches fire at this tournament, Sweden become terrifying. Isak bagged 53 goals over his last 2 Premier League campaigns, showing off truly elite technical skill. A silky first touch, explosive runs, and clinical finishing. He can shoot or dribble with both feet, making him absolutely lethal one-on-one. Add in his tactical brain and clever movement between the lines. Out wide, Anthony Elanga injects pure pace into their transitions. Pulling defenders wide is his main job, opening up those central lanes for Sweden's forwards. And dropping 2 goals on Barcelona means he arrives flying high. At the back, Victor Lindelof is still their untouchable captain. He brings leadership, total calm, and clean passing from the Aston Villa defense. Right beside him, Atlanta's Isak adds raw aggression, muscle, and sharp anticipation to bully powerful forwards. Then you have Daniel Svensson, a massive tactical cheat code. He is a natural left back, but his engine and ball skills mean he dominates in midfield or out wide. That flexibility is vital now, especially since Dejan Kaluski is missing out due to complications from knee surgery. And without Kaluski on the pitch, a heavy creative burden lands right on Lucas Bergvall, the 20-year-old from Tottenham Hotspur. This kid is easily one of Sweden's top midfield prospects. Mattias Swanberg will step up beside him to balance things out. Also, you have to watch Benjamin Negron. He just had a killer Europa League run with Celtics, bagging 4 goals against tough squads like Stuttgart and Ford. Honestly, mate, the guy is arriving in blazing form. Up in the Scottish Premiership, Negron ended his year with 9 straight goal contributions. He was basically a scoring machine for the champions of Scotland. So when you look at that entire core together, it is obvious why this Swedish squad is building serious hype before the 2026 World Cup.